pushing your chair back? Did you have a fancy video effect you'd like to share with the group, or are you just not going to tell us anything other than the shadow knows?
Hey, Bruce, you're
He's muted. He's on mute.
Okay, there we go. It's the simplest of answers. I just pushed the chair back, you know.
That's what my wife said. She picked it out. I was expecting some type of a graphic effect, you know, some type of a computer trick you were going to share.
Sometimes less is more.
It looked like a logarithmic departure, didn't it?
I mean, it was pretty cool. I mean, on our side of the screen, I have to tell you. I mean, I didn't want to go to sleep. I was a little scared that night.
I'm pretty sure that Bruce actually his head is detachable. He just hasn't quite, you know, shared the secret, but it's detachable. But
all right.
So
7:08. Okay, so here we are.
So yeah, when we
haven't seen the guest speaker
folks,
yet.
Yeah. By the way, our guests, our mystery guest, will be joining us shortly. But I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'll let Paul do the introduction, but I'm going to mute you all for a little while if you don't mind, and then we'll unmute a little later for our mystery guest. So,
all right, well, here we are, the 17th of December, the closing day of our Zoom for this year, and you know, thank you to Tom for coming up with this idea, and Tom and Bruce for coming up with the Zoom Fest, which was pretty cool, and you know, for giving us this concept of keeping the club together despite the travails of the COVID pandemic, and even with a successful Brookline under our event under our belt, you know, we've had a lot of positive feedback on the Zooms, and I think as George wisely sum up, I don't know if it was in the IO group or if he did it in person here with us, you know, in the hustle and bustle of a show with buying and selling and running around and putting things on the free table and collecting the money and all kinds of stuff, you know, sometimes you just don't get to know folks as well as you would like. And in this sort of bi-monthly format where we can all look at each other's collections and share a story or something about a set or a frustrating restoration project, you know, George summed it up and said, I think I got to know people better here on Zoom than I did at all the years going to different meets. You know, certainly we said hello and exchanged pleasantries and all that, but so the Zoom has been a nice dimension to add to the club. And while we put a lot of things on the website that say, no, we're not having a meet, no, we're not doing this, no, we're not doing that. Well, yes, we are still Zooming, and hopefully this trend all continues out into next year. So to anybody who's been an attendee or a visitor, we thank you. And if you've shared a story or a presentation or had some comments that have helped somebody in the group, again, thank you, and tell anybody else you may know in the club who is interested that we are here pretty much twice a month, every month, and we'll run with this as long as we can. So enough from me, and we'll turn this over to the founder of our Zoom tonight, Mr. Tom Perera, who has a presentation for us tonight, and he's done some excellent ones this year. So we expect nothing less than a 5-star performance tonight, Mr. Perera.
But he'll want to record this, I'm sure.
Well, Tom.
I don't see Tom.
Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Very, very sorry, but Tom Perera could not get here tonight. Very sorry. He was arrested by the police inside a dumpster in back of an abandoned Radio Shack store this afternoon. I know he always carries lots of cash to buy radios, so maybe he can pay his bail and join us later. Meanwhile, I will give the talk on the psychology of collecting radios tonight. Yes, yes, I know, I may bear some resemblance to a character who likes to show up on December 25th each year, but I am actually Professor Dr. Ima. Yes, Ima is difficult to pronounce. It's not Irma, it's Ima. It's spelled I-am-a. And my name is I am a know-it-all. And I certainly do. I earned my doctorate degrees and professorship from the University of Vienna, Austria in 1879, where I studied and dissected the human brain and various unfortunate human patients. It was I who trained the great psychiatrist, Sigmund Freud. People often mispronounced his name too. They called him Sigmund Fraud. But he was not a fraud. He was a Freud with an oi, Freud. I am a psycho therapist, that is, a psycho analyst, and some kind people even call me the world's greatest psycho. I specialize in the most complex forms of psychopathology. The technical name for this is nut cases. You understand what I am saying? I know I have a very strange accent, but I hope you can understand me okay. I have treated over 7,000 patients and reached out to tens of thousands more through my many books and lectures. And if you will pardon my boasting, my patients have a surprisingly low recovery rate. I literally wrote the book on psychiatric disorders that is now called DSN, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Nut Cases. I will speak to you tonight about the psychology of collecting radios. I see that some of you were at my last lecture at the Antique Wireless Association conference in Rochester, New York in 2014. And I intend to go into much more detail than I had time for there because I was the banquet speaker, of course. At this conference, I understand that there are people here who collect radios, tubes, and some who even collect enigmas. Collecting itself is an enigma, as we will soon see. Collecting is an activity that may be practiced quite harmlessly. Let's see if I can get my system working here. Quite harmlessly indeed. Collecting can add pleasure and beauty and meaning to life. Collecting brings lovely radios into one's home. Collecting helps preserve happy childhood memories. But in some cases, it may get out of control and consume the collector and those around him or her. In this case, we psychos consider it to be a psychopathology in need of treatment, and that's my specialty. Let me start out by reviewing and explaining the origins of collecting to you. As humans, we evolved from lower animals like the squirrel. As you know, squirrels run around all day long stuffing their mouths with nuts, and then they run home to store them in a safe place. Thus, we have developed the term squirreling away our treasures. The squirrel is actually evolved from its ancestor, the ancient and lowly rat. Rats also have a habit of collecting things that has led us to develop the term pack rat. They bring home everything and anything and store it away and just fill their little places with it. The central core and oldest area of the human brain, of our brain, is called the allocortex, which means old cortex. It is identical. Look at it in there. It is identical to that of the squirrel. The squirrel's on the right, the human's on the left, in case it's confusing. And it is a very important part of our brain. Well, from all of this, you can see that we have inherited a genetic disposition to collect things. Our genes and our allocortex are an integral part of us. And there is nothing that even a great doctor like me can do about it. But our genes are only one component of the psychology of collecting. My student, Sigmund Freud, became world famous by teaching my way of analyzing the childhood influences that control our behavior and our lives. Seemingly minor incidents in our childhood can control our entire lives. Let me repeat a secret tape recording of one such incident in the childhood of the over-the-top hyper collector. Professional privacy ethics prevent me from giving his name or playing the actual tape recording, but I will repeat it for you here. Mommy, Mommy, what's that? That is a radio, dear. What does it do, Mommy? Mommy, what does it do? It plays music and voices. I want it, I want it, I want it. No, dear, you cannot have it. We have a Victrola for all the music we need. Mommy, Mommy, I want it. Mommy, Mommy, I want it, I want it, I want it. Mommy, please, Mommy, please, Mommy, please, 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 Mommy, I want it. Sorry, dear. Mommy, 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 I want it, I want it, I want it, I want it. Please, please, please. Oh, you don't love me. Oh, gosh, you don't love me. Why don't you hate me? Why do you hate me, Mommy? I hate you, I hate you. Ah! Well, in this seemingly minor episode, technically called a tantrum temperius, the entire life of this child was altered forever. You can see it in his face. By denying him what he wanted, his mother left his wanting, his needing, his hopes and desires unfulfilled. She rejected his need, and indeed, she ruined his life. This is a great childhood trauma called parental rejection. Ever since that time, whenever he saw a radio that he wanted, he thought his mommy was not going to let him have it. So he felt again the unbearable pain of parental rejection. So he bought it for himself to reduce the pain of rejection. Little by little, he filled his garage, his house, and even his entire home with radios until finally he could barely walk through his house. You may have seen him on television when a camera team filled this home for an episode of hoarding. Now, let me give you another example of a childhood trauma that led to uncontrollable collecting. Let us again listen in as a child sees a pretty little radio. Mommy, 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 what is that? That is a radio, dear. What does it do, Mommy? Mommy, what does it do? It plays music and voices. I want it. All right, dear, I'll buy it for you. And the child takes the radio home and starts listening to the magical voices of the Lone Ranger, Sky King, the Shadow, and the Green Hornet. The child does not understand that the people are not inside the radio, so the child starts talking to the radio. The radio becomes the child's friend and playmate. Then the greatest and the worst of all childhood traumas takes place. The mother goes out of the house and leaves the child alone with a babysitter. This is the first real terror that the child has ever experienced. My student Sigmund Freud calls this separation anxiety. And the radio is there to comfort the child and reduce the separation anxiety. The child talks to the radio, and it seems to talk back to the child. This forms a strong psychological bond between the child and the radio. The child comes to think of the radio as its mother and as its safety. But, yikes, what would happen if the radio broke? The child would be left alone again. So the child asks for and gets another radio, and another and another. As the child grows up, he or she discovers that there are not really any people inside the radio. Then the child wonders what is really inside the radio and takes it apart. And he breaks things, and with the help of the local radio shop owner, he learns to fix the things that he broke, to build simple radios. And then he discovers Heathkits, and he gets very, very excited. Look at the expression on his face when he looks at that thing. He is right now in ecstasy, and he is learning that that thing in his hand is a radio tube. Look at his sister over on the right. She's having such a good time. She thinks it's just very, very funny. So that's what happens with Heathkits. He gets a ham radio license then and can finally talk to the real people instead of the people inside his radios. His life begins to revolve around radios. Let me show you a typical story like this. This is from the book Radio Rescue, which chronicles the life of a wonderful young ham radio operator, and it's written for young people. And it actually shows our young hero in Central Park in New York City, looking up at the statue of Samuel Morse. And that statue really exists in Central Park. It is a statue showing Morse with a Morse tape register under his left hand and paper tape with Morse code on it. Well, this boy gets very excited about radios and starts listening to a receiver and listening to radio stations, and he knows that he has to learn the Morse code, so he puts a big chart of the Morse code up on the wall, and he starts learning the Morse code. And then he gets very, very active in learning the Morse code. And he thinks Morse code, and he thinks about the Morse code, and he practices the Morse code, and he practices it some more. And then when he thinks he's ready, he goes down to the big federal building in New York City, and he takes the test. Meanwhile, he has been walking Morse code, riding the bus Morse code, and even one day when he walked into class late, he said, da-da-da-da-da-da-da in Morse code, which stands for I'm late. He thought he was ready for the test. Off he went to the federal building, and you can see, he failed the test. So he came out crying, but he now started dreaming Morse code, and he worked ever so hard to learn the Morse code. And finally, he took the test again, and he got his license. In this case, this was a long time ago. His call letters were 2 Alpha Zulu Kilo, 2AZK. And that was the start of his happiness in ham radio. Here's a picture of him going with his father into the subway station in New York City, which led down to only one place and that was called Radio Row. And Radio Row was a wonderful part of New York City where all the stores had radio parts out on the street for you to buy. And his father was in such a good mood after he passed the test that he started buying him things here, headphones, and he bought him all kinds of things. They brought them home, and he started building his transmitter. And you can see his father helping him. He bought this big panel. He started populating the panel, studying how things fitted together, learned how to solder, and built this radio. But what good is a radio without an antenna? And an antenna is very, very difficult in New York City because there are no trees to hang antennas from. So in the middle of the night, because if you do this during the day in New York City, people get very suspicious, he dropped a wire down from the roof of his house to his father. And his father quietly walked across the street and hooked it to a wire that had been dropped down from a building on the other side of the street. And then he pulled the wire tight, and all of a sudden he had a lovely little wire stretched across the street from one building to another, and he was on the air. And here he is on the air talking at first to people in the United States, in California and Florida and Ohio. And then, oh, glory day, he made contact with England and then France. And in the middle of the night, he was able to make contact all the way to Australia. This was one happy radio ham. But then one day there was a terrible, terrible storm in Florida, and people were in terrible trouble. They needed to be rescued, and the people in New York City needed to know that they were all right. So he got on the air in New York City on the left here, and he made contact with a radio ham in Florida on the right, and they started sending welfare messages back and forth, letting people know that the people were okay in Florida. And when he ended up, the newspapers heard about that, and a newspaper reporter came along and took his picture. And there he is in his Radio Shack with his transmitter and his call letter cards on the background, QSL cards. And here is an actual picture of him. This book was not just made up by the author for children. It was actually a book that she wrote about her grandfather. And so here he is in his actual radio station, and it was all true. Here is another little boy at the age of 15. He's playing with his radio, and within 1 year, he's added more radios, and now he's just overwhelmed with radios. He's been adding more and more radios to his Radio Shack, as he calls it, and finally, he gets out of control. He can't fit them all in his room anymore. There are radios everywhere. He has to buy shelves and find a place in the basement of his building, and he is just having the most wonderful time with radios, with all of this. Here is another picture of what happened because he kept collecting more and more radios and audio equipment and hi-fi equipment, and pretty soon you could just barely walk down the aisle. Here's another story from a member of the organization that many of you belong to, NEVEC. It was posted recently. My grandfather, who was a radio experimenter, of course, saved the tubes from a set whenever he took it out of service. He put them all in a box and gave the box to my parents since they had the same model set and the set was still in service. Somehow that box of tubes ended up mixed in with other boxes containing Christmas gifts for my brother and I. I think it was probably around 1964 or 1965, which would have put me at 7 or 8 years of age. I unwittingly, my parents wrapped the box of tubes, labeled it for me, and put it under the Christmas tree. On Christmas morning, I opened it up, and I was overjoyed to have the beginning of my very own tube collection. My folks didn't have the heart to take it back. I may still have some of those tubes mixed in with my hundreds and hundreds of other tubes. So as you can see, there are numerous reasons that a person might start collecting things. And of course, radio collecting is not the only thing, but it is certainly one of them. Here's another over-the-top collector. Indeed, he was a little weird. And if you look at him closely, quite weird. He had a whole building in New York City, and he gradually filled that entire building in New York City with the things that he had collected. And he had a terrible time because he finally filled so much of his home that when I visited him, he was sleeping in the bathtub and dreadfully, dreadfully undernourished because he had filled his entire kitchen to the ceiling with 6-foot-high piles of antique radios, all of which were carefully categorized by manufacturer. One night, all of the radios he had piled up in his bathroom collapsed on top of him and killed him. But when nobody was looking, I sneaked in and borrowed his brain so I could use it in my lectures. You will see it shortly. His collection, of course, went on auction. Some of you might even have gone to his auction. Here is one of the rooms filled with the things that he had collected. And here is another room filled with the things that he had collected. And the catalog of the auction is down below, and it went on for hundreds and hundreds of tightly packed pages. So he was really out of control. He was a little weird. He wondered, had a big sign in his collection, "Is there sex after death?" Well, I guess he's finding out. He was even weirder than that. You know, we psychiatrists think that potty training is very important in the development of a child's behavior. Well, he collected the ultimate potty. This is the actual potty from Queen Elizabeth's royal yacht. And somehow you got it. And that was also in his collection. So radio collectors are not the only ones who collect and over-collect. In fact, here is a picture of a barn full of washing machines, where a man and his wife collect washing machines. So collecting can be a real, real problem. And we have to consider what is going on with this. And what we need to do really is to look at the difference in the size between a collector's brain and the size of the brain of a squirrel. And you can see the squirrel brain is just a tiny little thing down in the bottom of a collector's brain. And you can see how much more powerful the collecting urge in humans is than in squirrels. All of that stuff, the neocortex, is in humans, and it is a very, very large influence on collecting. Let us examine the outer brain areas, the neocortex, that control collecting, and see the terrible damage that one of these children had done by his mother, the mother that actually refused to let him have the radio. And here's a picture of a radio collector's brain. Look at the size of the huge collecting and hoarding lobes of the brain. Look at the front of the brain, the incredible size of his dumpster diving gyrus. That's the front part of the brain. It's truly amazing, and it's a wonder that he could even survive with such a strong attraction to dumpsters and dumps. Look at the size of his huge superior tuning condenser, very important part of the brain. Look at the size of his super duper dime right in the middle, and a little below that, the incredible size of his tuber boober. On the back of your brain, you'll see his terrible big short circuit. And on the back lower part of the brain is cute little power supply. In fact, his entire brain has become a collecting machine. In many ways, the irresistible urge to collect is like drug addiction and alcohol addiction. And it can overwhelm all rational thought and drive a person to spend huge amounts of money on rare things and tinker with those things. but it can even drive a person to spend huge amounts of money on common things like 632 screws, for example. Do you have any idea how many 632 screws he had in his home when it was cleaned out? I would say that if he had started screwing constantly at age 15, he would have had to live to age 3,988 to use up all of his 632 screws. I wonder whether this is the origin of the term, he has a screw loose. Maybe. Sounds like the basis for another of my books. How many of you have over 2,632 screws? All your 632 screws would be very hard to use up before you die. So your collecting may be out of control too. You too may need psychological help, and that's my job, psychological help. Now that we understand the overwhelming drive to collect and where it came from, what kind of therapy will help with this addiction? Some brave people try to kick the habit themselves. Here is a 73-year-old addict fondling his wafer switches and hugging his parts collection. He knew he was out of control, so he tried to kick the habit by getting rid of all of his radios and parts. 73, by the way, is a dangerous age for a ham because it means goodbye and signing off. And he didn't want to say goodbye and signing off. He took huge piles of his parts to a ham fest and then sold them like a dollar store for $1 each, no matter what they were. And after 10 o'clock in the morning, they were free. And after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he actually paid people $1 each to take what was left. And by late afternoon, nothing was left. But he still had tremendous amounts of stuff. And so he took them to another show, $1 each, free after 10 o'clock, and I'll pay you to take them away if they aren't all gone by 4 in the afternoon. And they were all gone, And the problem was that didn't do it. And so he brought them all to a NEVEC convention, and he put them all out on a table and he gave them all free, and most of them disappeared. But now they're all building up again in his barn. I don't know what he is going to do with it. So the next step, he went out and he bought a great big backhoe, and he put all of his big radios in the bucket of the backhoe, lots and lots of them. And he took these radios in the bucket and he buried them deep in the woods in a huge hole where it is impossible for him to get at them again. He even buried his beloved Heathkits, and he couldn't resist putting a little cross and a few flowers over them because Heathkits are so much a part of his real heart and soul. But as with most true addicts, he was right back buying radios the very next weekend at a flea market. Now, I forgot to mention a very deep secret that not many people but we psychos knew about flea markets. It is seldom mentioned, but we all know that flea markets have a sexual aspect, a very deeply important sexual aspect. When a buyer sees something that he wants very badly, he feels an excitement coming on. Indeed, it is an erotic excitement. And when a seller sees a buyer coming over to his table, he feels a very definite excitement coming on. If the buyer starts fondling the radio and twisting his knobs, the excitement grows. If the selling price is acceptable to the buyer and the sale is made, they both experience a simultaneous excitement. The psychos call this technically an orgasm. And everybody comes away very, very happy and satisfied. This is another reason why collecting is so addictive. So what works? What can be done about a person over collecting? Well, let us consider alcohol addiction as a model. The only therapy that is really effective with alcoholism is the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous, or AA. Alcoholics attend weekly meetings and help each other to deal with their addictions. AA works. But what about the special and very difficult case of an addiction to collecting radios? Happily, we have a therapy that works well for that. It is directly based on the basic principles of AA. It is called NEVEC, N-E-V-E-C. Every year, collectors attend the NEVEC conferences and help each other to enjoy their genetically inherited and mother-induced addiction to collecting. So, my friends, I have come to tell you that you are in good hands here in NEVEC. There are so many radio and tube collectors here that you cannot possibly buy too many radios or tubes because of the stiff competition from other collectors bent on buying the same radios and tubes. So now I've been given a few questions from the audience before I stop, and these are troubled people in the audience, and I have a minute or two, so I'm going to answer them. A lady writes, Dr. Know-It-All, you tried to help me at the AWA conference in Rochester, but it did not work. I am still beside myself with frustration. My husband spends more time playing with his tubes than he spends playing with my boobs. What can I do? Signed, Desperate Lady. I knew that her husband, boober part of his brain was enlarged, but I didn't tell her this. Well, my dear lady, there are several other therapies that work well in cases like this. Last time I prescribed a different version of the NEVEC therapy. I told you to encourage your husband to volunteer to work in the AWA meets. And I assumed that he would be so busy trying to help people inventory and sell their thousands of tubes that he would lose interest in his own tube collection and become interested in your boobs again. But I see that he was too addicted to his tubes and it did not work. Now I have a new therapy for you to use on your husband. Then a dog owner wants to stop a dog from going outside his yard, he puts up a special fence called an invisible fence around the yard. When the dog tries to go outside the yard, a radio signal activates his collar to give him an electric shock, and he soon learns not to go near the fence. He stops trying and does other things. So, my dear lady, just inconspicuously slip a dog's shock collar around your husband's neck the next time you hug him, and put an invisible fence around his tube collection. He will quickly begin to avoid his tubes and radios and turn to your boobs for safety and comfort. If none of those therapies work, my dear lady, I stand ready to help you more directly. I accept American Express, Visa, MasterCard, and boobs for my services, and I have flexible evening hours available. So now a man in the audience writes, Dr. Know-It-All, I've been collecting radios all of my life, but I have gradually lost interest in collecting. I've been there, I've done that, and I am bored. But radio collecting is my whole life. I have no other interests. I miss the great and overwhelming excitement of the hunt. Can you please help me? Signed, Tired Old Man. Ah, yes, I am sorry to hear of your problem, but I believe that I have a perfect solution for you. As you say, you used to feel an electric and positively erotic excitement when you saw a magnificent radio. As we age, our hormonal levels and other things begin to sag. Happily, modern medicine has a simple cure for this, and it is the little blue pill called Viagra. I will be happy to write you a prescription for it. After you take your Viagra, you will feel that old excitement and then some when you see a radio for sale. And you will be more than excited. By the way, it's very important to remember that if you experience an excitement that lasts longer than 4 hours, you must buy more radios immediately, and I mean immediately. So now I see that my time has run out, and I must leave you now, because as I came over to give this lecture, I noticed some tubes in a dumpster, and I want to get to them before anyone else sees them. Until next year, when I will return to help you with your problems, I wish you helping, happy collecting from me, the much, much, much too famous Professor I am a know-it-all. And I will simply sign out of this meeting and turn it back over to the people in charge of the meeting.
And don't forget to stop your recording, Doctor.
Thank you, thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well done. Well done. Well done.
Terrific job.
That was fun. Now we'll let the good doctor rejoin us here shortly, and we'll have to perhaps this will be an opportunity to do a roundtable for everybody to share their tales of accumulation, or what they are asking for Santa to add to that accumulation.
Well,
Hey, Howard, good to see you.
I had the thought that if I sold one of my antique cars, I could put an awful lot of radios into that space.
Yeah. Well, you're a Hudson collector, right?
Yeah, right. And also a Packard.
A Packard.
Mm-hmm.
Two great marks. So what Packard, if I'm going to just quickly steal that and ask the question, dare I do, what Packard do you own?
It's a 1928 7-passenger sedan.
Wow. I had to ask. I know it's not radio, but I'm going to ask because I just felt the need.
And that, I bought that radio before I was old enough to get a driver's license. And I took my driver's test in that car. So it's been a while that I've had it.
That is great. That is great. Well, that's cool. You have, well, there's an opportunity. You can put a lot of radios to replace a Hudson and a Packard.
Looks like Bill Holly has something to say.
Yeah, Bill.
Yeah, I have 2 points to make. One is I don't have anywhere as near the 4,000 632s or 832s, but all the ones I have are loose. And the other point is, I wonder if Vincent Price knows he was a radio collector.
If hey, why don't we just go around the table, and everyone can sort of chime in and see what what they are wanting for Christmas in terms of their next electronic acquisition, or do tell us how many radios you really do have. You might have to fess up. Hey, you know what? We'll just start. I'm going to start based on what I see in the corner. Hey, Bruce Burgess, do speak.
Well, this is an embarrassment of riches. I probably have 50 or 60 ham radio receivers. Would love to share them with someone. My fascination also is with printed materials. And recently I've been sorting my shortwave craft magazines. And I found out that I have a number of duplicates. I have about 40 duplicates in the collection of 60 or so of those. Anybody's looking for something to fill their collection, that they should let me know. But I'm also addicted to anything that has a sequence or numbers. So I admit to owning all of the ARRL handbooks from number 1 to last year's, well, actually this year's, 2020. I also admit to owning all of the West Coast handbooks, and another series by A. Frederick Collins, which preceded both of those, all of those. Lest I forget the electric radios, December of 2020 will be the first month that it hasn't been published due to the editor's health. He hopes to come back in January, but they are knocking on the door of about 375 months of those. So what am I going to do? I need psychological help.
That's impressive, Bruce. That's impressive. Good stuff. So, hey, how about you, Larry?
Oh, I guess I am unmuted, aren't I? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, I don't know how many radios I have. It is a finite number, unlike some of you guys. Matter of fact, that's one of the great things about being in this club. It makes me feel better because a lot of you guys are worse than I am. That's good therapy in itself. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot, but not to the point where you can't move around the house. You know, I mean, it's under control.
Well, that's what you tell yourself. We're here to help you, Larry. That's what they all say. I've yet to have a patient who said otherwise.
It's under control. It really is under control.
Oh, sure.
No.
Yep, I would take your word for it.
We'll see when what's populated your next table at the next swap meet.
Yeah.
Right, I'll look for you at the free table.
See, that shows I'm getting rid of stuff. You know, I mean,
That's a good sign.
am starting to downsize, but the thing with me is I like building more. You know, so every time I build something, since I'm out of shelf space, out of horizontal surfaces, I have to get rid of something.
Nice.
It's a tough life.
Let's see here. How about Joe Devonshire? How you doing out there in Maine?
I'm doing fine. Yeah, we didn't get quite as much snow as what you all got down that way. 8 inches is just enough for me. I'm not really looking for anything to come from the great jolly old elf. I have enough things to keep me occupied for quite a while. I'm looking forward to Zoom Fest come March. I hope we can pull this off again. I think it'd be a lot of fun for us in the spring. Not much else, and just just trying to get through the season and endure the weather and being locked up in the house. So hope everybody does well.
Actually, it's good you mentioned the Zoom Fest. This is still in the preliminary stage, but we are talking about redoing what we did back in last May when we didn't have a site and we didn't have the show at Brookline. So, we probably, would like to actually see how many interested parties it would be, to see whether people would like to do that again. Especially in the winter where, things will still be fairly quiet. We're probably hopefully digging out at the last of the snow, but maybe there's an opportunity for people to, do something through the Zoom, just like we did before. Same format, same, we'll figure out a theme if we want to do a contest as well. It's all in the early stages. We want to see, people are interested in doing so, like we did before. It's sort of like a formal spot meet on the day that we would have done, our NEVEC, the show in Nashua. So we'll send an email and see if people are interested. But if you guys are interested, we'd love to hear that you are and see if we get some people signed up so that they, if we have enough people interested, we'll definitely want to do it.
Well, John, I'll just throw in, if I may, John, just throw in that one of the recent developments in the IO group is the subgroup for swapping. So for you guys who need to have an outlet for your over collecting, it's a nice little idea in that, we certainly share ideas and ask for help and mention interesting topics in the regular IO group. To have a subgroup that I believe Alan had helped kick off. We have a group now for people looking for buying and selling, swapping, etc. So we have a little bit of a sort of an ongoing constant swap in addition to whatever we decide to do on Zoom. So join the group and check it out, and maybe you can help relieve some overburdened collector. You can help him in his process of mitigating his collection.
Yeah, think of it as transference.
Yes. Well, I took the pledge and I broke it because I said I wouldn't be getting any more consoles. And what do? Is I show up at Howard Mariotti's house and wind up coming home with a console, which I've managed to sneak into a common room in the house with not as much controversy as I had thought, and plays very well. So I thank George. He was on last week, Howard. But so we all relapse. It's part of the process, I guess. I was looking for things that are small, and then I come home with something 4 feet by 3 feet. But oh well.
Well, if I see Paula, will it be safe? I mean, should I avoid that?
No, I think she's accepting it more as a piece of furniture at this point because I haven't decided to play it too much with her around the house. So, but it does pick up 1510 very nicely. It's a pretty sensitive set. It gets AM very well. So I'm just trying to play around with a little bit for some of my lower power favorites. But thanks again. So,
well, tell us what you got. What you got?
Well, I got a Silvertone 1865. I mentioned it to George at the last meet. So it's kind of a cool little set. It has sort of these triple spas in the front. Spas, this is that Boston accent. And kind of vaguely reminiscent of those Arvin Rhythm series, with the 3 bars that come up across the speaker. And it has a very cool dial. So it's a 1936 8-tube. But it sounds swell and it's the right size. For a console, it's actually, I'll justify it because we all have to justify things with our compulsions. It's kind of a small console. It's not like a giant Philco. It's almost a mini, So, I mean, I justified that 7 ways from Tuesday before I finally showed up and relieved Howard of it. But in any event, so it's here and, I'll just try to pick up and move on into the new year, and say no more consoles once again until I see the right one, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, anybody else with any holiday wishes or things to share or just to add a comment on the year's Zoom that they'd like to throw in? Mr. Hawley's back.
Yeah, Paul, you made some good points about Zoom early on in the meeting. And I had a suggestion, a thought and a suggestion. By this time next year, hopefully we'll have all had our vaccinations and be able to go out in public and so forth. I think it still might be a good idea to keep the Zoom meetings going like once a month. Because at our 3 swap meets, most of us are all tied up with trying to peddle stuff or buy stuff. And we don't get a chance to chat back and forth and get to know each other. So that's my suggestion for what it's worth.
I
Well,
think
we'll
it's a
see.
good
We'll see
suggestion.
where we go, and I'm glad you've enjoyed them and think they're worthy of continuing. Well, as long as we can find interesting people to regale us with stories, like I'm a know-it-all, or some of our other presenters, which I think we'll have no shortage of, as long as we have some very talented people in the club too who have some things to share. We may be able to do this at the very least monthly, and maybe we'll continue the bi-monthly schedule, and we'll see where it all goes. As long as we continue to have a pretty good core group, and maybe we can even expand that a little bit. I think I'll speak for John. I'll presume I can speak for him and say we'd be happy to try to continue to do this.
Oh, yeah.
So, thank you,
I
Bill.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree. I think, all of us are, scattered at 6 states, at least. And I think we got David Spivey out in Arkansas. We got people scattered throughout. And so, we rarely, just by convenience, we rarely get a chance to get together without having some distraction like a swap meet. So, we enjoy doing this. If nothing else, and we try to find open forum questions so that if, we don't have a guest or some formal presentation, it becomes a hangout. We grab a topic and go with it. And if it lasts, full 90 minutes, great. We end, early. That's okay too. So if you guys are still in, we're in it too.
Yeah, so if anybody has a suggestion, comment, idea for a program, something they'd like to present, an idea for somebody they would like us to try to have visit with us that they found interesting in the hobby somewhere, from a different club, from some other contacts you may have made, we'll be glad to do it. So just
Absolutely.
shoot John or I an email, and we'll see where we can go with it.
Absolutely. And I think Santa Claus is raising his hand. Or who is
Yes, Santa.
Santa's on.
I'm very sorry to be so late to the meeting. I had a great idea when I was thinking of the dumpster that I would dress up in a costume, in a camouflage costume that nobody would notice. And so I put on my Santa Claus suit and I went into the dumpster thinking that nobody would notice me. I'd look perfectly normal at Christmas time. And there they were, the police. And it's the second time that I've been caught in a dumpster. About 20 years ago in New Jersey, I found a dumpster out in back of the TRW plant that was just full of incredible, wonderful things. So I thought I'd get away with it again, but I guess I didn't. I was actually patterning myself after Bruce with the beard. I thought he looked so inconspicuous, nobody would notice me, but well, anyway, I'm so sorry that I couldn't be here for the talk, and I'll try and do one again next year sometime.
Thank you, Mr. Perera. The police probably thought you had one too many of those Enigma IPAs, and said, "This is another one." It just goes with the territory around this time of the year. Drag them out, bring them downtown.
And especially since and of course the police had more reason to drag him away because he was speaking very cryptically.
He's got too many loose 632s.
That's right. Well, rather than fight for his gun, he was probably trying to take the guy's walkie-talkie away, which didn't go over very big either. But that's another story. So anyway.
So and Noah, you got to have a few words because you've got a collection that you've got scary TVs, all sorts of stuff going on.
Well, I was thinking maybe what I needed for Christmas more than anything else was an intervention, but I'm sitting in my bedroom, so this will be just a quick go around a typical young man's bedroom, I would say. No diseases here whatsoever, but then there'll be a quiz at the end to see if you can count how many radios there are in one person's bedroom.
Radio is 66. I have one of those.
Yeah, radio is 66, but does yours look like it's actually made of stone and lapis lazuli. My wife is an artist. This came from my high school buddy's basement. So I've had this since the 1960s. It was his grandmother's and it was in pretty rough shape. And so I got it a long, long time ago when I was much younger, and have kept it all these years. And then my wife prettied it up a little bit more. The wood was pretty well shot, and so she kind of made it look real pretty. Then there's a couple little, my grandmother's on top of the refrigerator radio, the little Zenith was, so kind of kept that on there. Another little radio behind over there. As we kind of go around, this is the one that really got me in trouble.
Oh, that's
This,
a nice one.
I believe it's a 3045 or a 3046, 3045, I think, Grundig. And it was on the ground at an automotive swap meet in not very far away from where we hold our flea markets, up in Hollis. And it was on the ground and had a bunch of wires hanging out of the back of it. And I had heard, not with my ears as far as actually listening to the equipment, but I had heard word of mouth that these German radios sounded really good. And this thing was forlorn and sitting on the ground. And my daughter looked at it and said, "Hey, Dad, look, a neat old radio." And it was $5. And so
$5.
$5. So I brought it home and I started to learn how to make German radios work. And then it became my downfall. And now there's like way too many German radios in my house. But
Look at
but
that
that was the
speaker.
one. That was the one that started. Well, that's part of my infinity collection. And then this over here. Now these Grundig speakers. Now they came in a couple different varieties, but this pair and the other ones over there on the right. These are the Grundigs that actually have the tube amplifier built into them. So these are amplified speakers with tone controls and amplifiers. Those are kind of special. So those were
special.
Craigslist got a little crazy back in the 80s and 90s, and so then there's some vacuum tube stereo equipment, some Macintosh power amplifiers and preamplifiers. Everything is dual mono, so it's it's stereo but dual mono. A little bit of modern stuff there, and then a little bit more German stuff that got stacked up.
See the Blaupunkt
on top of the other stuff. And then happened to go to Todd's farm one day and found one of these grandmother, I guess I'll call it, clocks that's actually a radio. And so that had to come home with me.
What's on top of that?
Philco Predicta.
Oh, the Enterprise. That's like, is that what's on top?
Oh yeah, no, that's the original Enterprise. That I
Nice.
got
Nice. I'm all in. I'm all in.
So yeah, that actually I can't do it while I'm holding the camera here, but the little LEDs still light up. The little green LEDs batteries are still in that thing. And then this very strange radio, when I started poking around on Craigslist, I got the model. On the internet, and found out that it had a pair of push-pull 45s in it. And I was like, well, the radio itself's like $25. So if either one of the 45s are working or the Type 80 rectifier, I mean, that's worth it right there.
Well, that's another justification. I mean, we've all done that. I mean, if the tubes alone are good, it's worth the $20. I mean,
but
it may weigh 300 pounds, but
and then I found out that it had these really cool little doors that like opened on the side of it, and then it opened up this way, and the cabinet was really, really nice, and the Predicta's on top of it, so I can't open this up, but there's a turntable, inside there, and it was like, and it sounds wonderful, especially with the push-pull 45s. And it's like, that's kind of like a little liquor cabinet or something, that you can hide stuff down in there. And so, poof, it still had to be here. And then there's another one of those consoles, a Grundig console, that I just thought was cool because you can kind of just pull things down and you can see the turntable and you can see the radio part of it. And then you can also make it just kind of disappear, if you fold it up and do that. And then that's another one of those Bing Crosbys that
Yep,
I
little
showed
Philco
one
Bing
time
Crosby. Yeah,
where
you
it's
can
like
put a
a
little
disc
White
drive
Christmas
where
on
you
there.
push
Yep, I get you.
Yeah.
Philco Bing Crosby, and then the little pop-up radio. You know, you've all seen this one, right? Where when it closes up, the whole dial disappears, and then when you turn it on, it flips open, and then you get the whole dial that pops up out of there.
Oh, that's cool.
And then that little transistor Columbia radio.
Is
And
there
a
a bed
Sherwood
in
tuner
there?
showed
I
up.
mean, it's a bedroom or a radio room.
It's a bedroom. We're getting there. We're getting there. So then there's
We had to get rid of the bed with the
sitting
last
there on
radio.
top of another Grundig, you know, that's behind my baby pictures. There's another Grundig, and then there's a GE 802, which is an AM FM triple play with a TV set with a record changer in the cabinet. And then the bed actually
Oh,
has
that's good. My
I should
faith
do
is
it this way.
restored that you haven't gone completely overboard.
The bed is there, but it also, you'll notice the headboard of the bed is a dashboard of a 1962 Chrysler that's fully functional and powered up so that the radio can be listened to while you're in bed, and you know, the dashboard lights up and all the buttons.
Does that light up now?
It turned out that the dashboard, the width of a 62 Chrysler is just about the same as a queen size bed. So I had this extra dashboard around, and it's like, well, why wouldn't you make a headboard out of
Well,
it?
you know, the things you find out on a Zoom with
That is
NEVEC.
just beyond awesome.
So that's there, and then you move around over here, and then there's another stack of, you know, another Grundig with another little Grundig on top of it, with another little All-American 5 with my Nana's GE clock radio that I still use to wake up to when I need to, because it works just fine. And that's actually one of a lamp out of her living room that I still have in my house, and a phone that came out of her house. So, all right, was anybody counting? What was the number of radios in one person's bedroom? Just radios. I'm not counting the stereo equipment. I'm not counting the amplifiers. I'm not counting the TV sets, only the radios.
16.
I was thinking about 20 or 25.
28.
Ooh, 25 is the number. Good job.
Wow. Hey,
Noah.
And
and just to show you, there is still floor space. So I'll do one of these things here. Like, look
If
at all the
doorbell
carpet.
rings and there's a van in front of the house, it is the intervention team. Don't go to the door.
Wait.
Just don't.
I gotta ask you, Noah, if you would indulge us. Does the instrument panel light up on the 62?
It does. If I can reach
He wants you to light it up. It's obvious to everybody.
If I can reach the power supply,
that-
I don't know.
Let me tell you, the dashboards from about what they started 1960 with that design.
1960.
The electroluminescent dashboard is awesome, beyond awesome.
So
he's got it bad too. He's
I
another
turn
one.
these off.
Oh, there you go.
That kills me. That is so awesome.
There is the electroluminescent dashboard, and it's also the radio.
That's special. Those
Somehow the digitized speedometer on a 2020 Chrysler Malibu just doesn't cut it compared to that.
Oh my God.
John?
So then we have our little gauges lighting up, and the turn signals, and the high beam indicator.
Oh, baby.
And there's even a which one is it there? That's just trying to think of which one is which here. I've got.
Did you ever hit your head on that thing?
The horn goes off.
Got the little light, little dome light, little light above the.
That is just
the radio, and the radio only lights up when you turn on the radio.
And it has an ashtray. What else do you
And it
want?
has an ashtray if you want to smoke in bed. You got an ashtray and glove box. You want to keep marital aids in the glove box.
Oh,
you know,
God, help us all.
They're the early 60s Mopar Chrysler dashboards are they're just very special.
Well, it had these, and this isn't actually a dashboard from a car. It has air
conditioning. I see that.
So,
Look at those vents.
these vents aimed at you in the summertime for air conditioning, and then in the wintertime, you pushed them down and you rotated them because they became your defrosters, and then hot air came out of them on the windshield for defrost. So
that is just so cool. And you're the only guy on the planet with a Chrysler 300 H. Is that an H?
Oh, well,
yeah.
62 would be an H. Yep,
The only one who'll admit it, John.
exactly.
Would come
Star
on and
Trek,
show us
a
all.
Chrysler 300.
Star
It's
Trek,
amazing.
Chrysler 300s.
How many
Yeah, I
labels
don't-
from Tang did you have to send in to get your, your
Exactly.
Star Trek ship?
Oh wow! I'll tell you, this is
All
a
right.
Do it with one hand.
Well,
I'd
I'm
have to
glad you
push
asked
on, but
John for
that's
something
the-
tonight, Mr. Gibbons,
that's
because he
the-
certainly delivered.
Yeah, he did. Boy, I'll tell you. He's
Yeah,
got
somebody
lots.
please take it away. Oh, there's a little portable Hickok tube tester on the floor
never know when you'll
underneath
need
the
that.
Grundig thing there. Gotta need that. But I need help from somebody in the group besides the intervention.
I'll take that
My-
dashboard.
my all-wave 15 has like these tubes like 2A7 and 55 and 56, and I don't have a tube tester anymore that's old enough to test those kinds of tubes. Does anybody in the group have an old tube tester that I can
I'm sure somebody does.
rent some time on to, like, get my tubes tested? Anyway,
think we could
contact me
work
on the
something out.
list or whatever. I'll put out a message on the list.
Yeah,
On the server, or whatever.
I have a couple tube testers that'll do those.
There you go.
Okay.
I see an opportunity, John Noah.
Yes?
Clearly, you do not have enough of these.
No, I guess I wasn't going to go into those because it was a radio thing. But yeah, there are, let's see. There are
Two. I counted two.
Two.
Yeah, I thought I saw two.
3, 4, 5. So there are 5 in this room, and there's a couple more downstairs, in the living room, dining room.
All right,
Because
well, if you're craving another one, let me know.
what I'm really craving that I haven't been able to find, there's a square version.
Wow.
Square version.
Exactly. There's a square version because the mystery of the mystery clocks isn't all that mysterious once you know the secret. But when you know the secret of the mystery clock and then you see a square one, then it's really a mystery. And it's actually, I have to flip this around. It's the same principle, except it's imperceptible. This motion.
Oh, really?
That makes the minute hand go around.
Interesting.
As opposed to the rotating glass that makes the minute hand go around. So I've only seen one of them, and it's a classic. That's another part of the disease. I only saw one of them, and when I saw it, I didn't buy it, and I've never seen it again. So that's part of the disease. When you see something, you might not ever see another one. You have to get it when you see it. Otherwise, you could be doomed. All right, so please, somebody figure out that intervention and somebody take it away.
You may
and
need
show...
a guy in a red suit with an empty sack to come and take a few of those things away.
Yes, a U-Haul.
That is
what you might be looking for.
That is simply awesome.
All right.
Thanks, Noah.
Well, we're getting up on the witching hour here. Anybody else have anything to share before we sign off for 2020?
Hey, before we do, we make sure
Yes,
give a thanks to Howard for 2020.
Thank you to our president. That's correct. And welcome to our new.
Yes, and welcome, Larry. But thank you guys for the baton. But Howard, thank you for everything you've done this year, and for the group prior to before you were president. So we really
It's been a heck of a year to navigate
guys.
through. It's not been for a variety of reasons to do what we do. Volunteer wise and leadership wise, when everything's normal, shall we say, can be an awful lot of work. But to try to do it with COVID and rescheduling and distancing and pulling off Brookline and yada yada yada, it's been a hard year, and it will be a tough year getting started. But hopefully we'll all put this behind us soon. But thank you very much, Howard. We appreciate it all.
Well, I appreciate all the support I got from everybody. And I don't know, can you guys hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay. I don't know why you don't see my picture here because it's, I don't know if I'm muted.
Oh, we can see it. Okay.
But I did want to share one thing when it came to collecting. Well, you guys know about the magic eye tubes.
Yeah.
If I can share my screen here, I got something to show you guys.
by all means.
This is a, can you see it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
This is an automobile radio with a magic eye tube.
Son of a
Wow.
gun.
So-
I've never seen one.
This is
No.
distracted driving of the 30s. You could look at the tuning eye as you drove down the road in your Packard or your Willys, and yeah, when I learned that there was such a thing as an automobile radio with a tuning eye tube, I had to get it, and I searched all over, and I finally found one.
Get it in
But,
John Nowazaki's bedroom?
Well, no, fair warning here. You have to realize that there's a potential when you do something like this, that now you can't just have the radio. You need to actually spend $100,000 on the appropriate car
Yeah.
in which to install it.
Well, I just might do that someday, and that's something I'm afraid of as well. But what I'm going to do is in the chat section, I'm going to post a link. I did fix it, and I got the video going.
Beauty.
I got a video of it running, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to here in the
I'm assuming it's 6-volt positive ground.
yes, it is. So there's a link there. I think you guys ought to be able to see it
Yeah.
in the chat.
I see it.
Yep.
I saw it.
And you can watch that video. It's my kind of outgoing thing as president, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Anyway, it's just kind of one of those
Thank you.
oddball things that is the kind of thing that I collect. So
Thank you for all your efforts on
Oh
behalf
yeah,
of
no,
NEVEC.
I
Thank
still
you,
enjoy
Howard.
your website from time to time, Howard, because it's the ultimate guide on magic eye tubes and all the different patterns.
Hey, Howard, just so you know, Stacy, who founded your chip company down there with Frito-Lay, has closed her juice bar and salad shop in Needham.
yeah, I
Don't know if you heard that one or not. But the
I
chips
wasn't
live
too-
on. The chips keep
I wasn't
going.
very fond of the drinks anyway, but you know,
The chips
she's
keep
such an
rolling out.
entrepreneur, I'm sure she'll do something.
By the millions. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you, guys.
Let's see. I want to make sure we catch everybody before we sign off here. If anyone has any other tales of their collection, or or if wants to say anything in particular. Let's see. Catching Russ
I don't know.
or Gary,
I don't know
Bob.
what to say
Make sure we catch everybody.
Is the NEVEC radio get together on tomorrow morning?
Is
Oh,
the net
the-
up tomorrow morning? It usually is, from what I understand, though. I'm not a participant. You guys going to be up, Larry?
Yeah,
I
9:30.
know you're
Friday
looking for
morning.
more members. You're looking for more people to hop on. So
Oh, yeah, well, I'll be on, sure.
3805.
I'll try to make it unless I oversleep or something silly like that.
Yeah, that's good. We've lost a few people over the summer, and trying to remind everybody that we're still here, and there's a core group that has been on all summer, and we are starting to get a few more participants now, but we miss you, Gary.
Yeah, I'm kind of not available every Friday, and then some Fridays I sleep late, and then there are the Fridays that you forget. When you turn 70, that happens more and more.
put a reminder on the coffee pot in the morning, so you'll see it first thing when you get out.
Oh, I might have an interesting thing, not as good as John Nowasaki's, but I've been probably for even starting a little bit before I retired 7 years ago, I've been downsizing my radio collection. And the reason for that was I wanted to make more room in my basement for a model train lamp. And I've been doing pretty good at downsizing, but I've been selling more than I've been buying. The only problem is I've been buying still. So it's going a little slowly. And I finally decided that rather than pare down maybe the radio collection any further, maybe I should just pare down the size of the train layout it's going to be.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, Len or Roy, anything from you guys before we sign off? Because I think we haven't heard from you guys.
No, I really don't have anything tonight.
Oh, all right, that's fine. Glad you joined, Len.
Oh, I love this.
I'll show you something I picked up last week, if I can get the camera to hit it properly.
All right, Roy.
I have only about 20 radios, but I don't know if you can.
Ooh, a nice turntable.
So this is a Bang & Olufsen I just picked up.
Sexy.
Oh,
Yeah, it's from the early 90s, late 80s, but
nice.
That's
I'm
hot.
hoping it has a cold solder joint because the volume's not loud and they have proprietary cartridges
Yes, they
and they're
do.
very expensive. So if anybody has an MMC3 that they're looking to get rid of that's known to be good, let me know.
It covers in beautiful shape. I was listening while you show that, Roy. I have my parents' Baomaster 2400 FM receiver, which also drove the Baomaster turntable, which is a little bit of a wreck. And they had it paired with a set of KEF speakers, one of which blew beyond repair. And but I still have the Baomaster itself. And I have to say, for an FM only receiver, it's neat. It has that basic remote control with the the 15-volt battery. It's kind of reminiscent of one of those early TV clickers. I mean, that thing still sounds great. I have it with a set of Cambridge Soundworks speakers, and the thing is really cool. Those are nice.
Where did the remains of the KEF speakers go? I have a bunch of KEF stuff as well, so I might
I
either
have one I've managed to salvage, one I gave to somebody who claimed to be able to work on them, who I think probably put it into the great beyond. But I don't have the model number off the top of my head. If you'd have a sibling for it, that might be a very nice thing.
Yeah, I had the vintage of, they used to have rectangular woofers called B139s. They had 5 1/4 inch mid-range or bass drivers that were B110s, and then the tweeters were very nice and smooth tweeters, and they were called T27s.
Well, the whole thing that makes the B&O experience in the Irish family very remarkable is, my parents growing up in the Depression, prior to the B&O, they had this, Magnavox they probably got at Jordan Marsh. It didn't have a receiver. It was just purely hi-fi. And so, for my father, who didn't buy a brand new car until he was in his 50s, they went out and they actually had a furniture maker make a suitable case and cabinet for this thing. They went out and they bought the B&O, the turntable, the FM amp, and the KEF speakers. I had a couple of friends who were audiophiles come over at the time. They said, "What is going on here?" Well, I think they had finally kind of reached the point where they thought, I'm going to buy something that, is a little bit extravagant in my life that I've never done. So it kind of represented the apex, I think, of maybe one of their consumer purchases next to my father's 98, Oldsmobile that he bought. So it's kind of neat that at least I have the Baomaster itself and the remote control unit, which often gets lost running, and it sounds pretty cool. I have the turntable, which it may not be beyond repair, but some of those parts are kind of hard to come by even on the Bay. And but yeah, I'll look up that KEF speaker model number, and I'll let you know, John. I appreciate the offer.
All right.
Thank you.
I got to say this because I've been watching John's Noah's cameras walking around. I think we're gonna have to have a meeting. It's called the Noah's home walkthrough, because there's something for everybody in this thing.
This is the
I want to see those trains run.
There is something for everybody here, and I'm telling you, Noah,
He may
we have a
need
show.
more than one episode, So.
Oh, I think so. Let's just take it room by room. Episode 1, bedroom. Episode 2, basement.
Episode 3, train room. Episode 4, antique cars in the garage.
I'll tell you. I think everyone's going to descend on Noah's house. When things clear up.
Don't ever give your address out, because there's probably a lot of things people are drooling over right now.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, though, it's it's all very heavy, so like the address isn't a big deal. No one steals anything because no one wants
Nobody's
to carry
gonna get that
it away.
RCA 49 tube projection television out that I'm still kind of thinking about.
Exactly. Or some of the
cool.
other RCA consoles that are in the house, or some of these Zenith consoles that are around here. It's like they're
When you see
everything.
the headline, man electrocutes himself, you'll know who stole it.
That's right.
I
The electric. I can't tell whether the electric bill is more from the things I own or from the hot tub that my wife uses, you know, but
That's awesome. You have quite some neat toys there.
Well, we've seen some nice collections, and people have been kind enough to share them with us all. So it's
Yeah.
about 8:32, John,
Yeah.
and we don't seem to
Well-
have any further comments. Anything else on your end to throw in before we wind it up here?
Other than I wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a healthy New
A
Year.
good
Stay healthy.
2021.
And
cheers.
the next meeting will be on January 7th, and Paul will be letting us know, as he
Yeah,
firms
we'll keep you
up.
tuned. We have some things in the works, and try to keep things interesting, not only talking amongst ourselves, but bringing in some other people from other clubs and other avenues of the hobby.
Who
and,
knows what other things we might have in closets that are around
That's
here.
well,
Oh,
you know,
I know. I'm telling you, we're gonna have the Noah show. I'm telling you.
American
telling you.
Pickers have nothing on you, John.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
gonna
send them over. Send them over.
we're definitely gonna pick on
The
you
big
more.
roll of
You see,
cash.
you got a lot of toys, But everybody,
So
thank
Tom,
you.
are you revving up the sleigh? I mean, are you the guy? I mean, we've heard, Santa's from up north. I mean, you're up in Vermont there. I mean, are you the real thing up there? I mean, you got the suit and the whole shebang. Is there a sled out back?
Just a bulldozer.
Just a bulldozer.
Is it painted red?
No, it's yellow. Sorry.
Well, thanks again, Tom, for getting the whole ball rolling on all of this year. It's been an interesting journey, and we'll see you all next year, 2021.
Thank you.
And
guys.
hopefully we'll be able to get together and shake hands in person and revert to our usual ways, which we'll probably be far more thankful for. We should have been more grateful for them than we even knew when we could experience it all. But as they say, absent makes the heart grow fonder. So, and plus you can grab more stuff in person than you can have it shipped UPS. So.
Thank you, Paul and John, for picking up the ball on this and really making it a fabulous season. It really has been fabulously fun meetings, and it's all due to your organization. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, we'll see you
You're
guys
welcome.
all
Thanks
again
for
very
indulging
soon.
us, Tom. You've been a big presenter, so thank you too.
No, really, I've tried to get this going with some of my car buddies and some of the other, train people or television people, and none of it's working like this special chemistry that's going on here with this group. So it's just been great. So, thank you to all of you. It's just it's fantastic.
Yeah, everybody adds to this soup here that we do every 2 weeks. So thanks everybody for attending. We appreciate it.
All right. And as the fat man in the red suit says, to all a good night.
That's right. Thanks everybody.
Right, guys. Take care.
Toys.
Happy New
All right,
Year.
boys.
You
Thanks,
can show
Howard.
us
Thanks
what was
everybody
under the tree
coming.
when we see you next time.
Bye-bye.
All
Good night,
right,
guys.
bye now, guys. Take care.